Hello everyone, I'm Shyamala Shukla, Senior Consultant with the Public-Private Partnerships Group of the World Bank. Welcome to all of you to our webinar series on transparency and accountability in public-private partnerships. This series, as many of you who've been with us before know, is jointly hosted by the Leadership, Learning and Innovation Group and the Public-Private Partnerships Group of the World Bank. In this series so far, we have had 4 webinars where we have discussed various topics. In the first webinar, we discussed the role of the Fairness Auditor in public-private partnerships in the province of Alberta in Canada. In the second webinar, we walked you through a framework for disclosure in public-private partnerships. In the third webinar, we spoke about PPP disclosure in Brazil. And in the fourth webinar, which was the last one, which was just last week, we spoke about Freedom of Information Acts and how these are related to disclosure in public-private partnerships. Please access the e-Institute website, and there you'll find all the webinars in our series, and you can access these, as well as other webinars related to public-private partnerships, which we have been bringing to you from time to time. Today's webinar is the last in the series, and we are very happy to see a good audience for this, and I hope it'll be the best webinar so far. Today we will discuss the International Infrastructure Support System. This is a project preparation platform which has the potential to be used as an information disclosure and dissemination tool as well, and that is the reason we have this inside our disclosure or transparency and accountability series. It's related. But it's more than that. It's not just a dissemination tool, it's much more than that. And our speaker for today, Christophe Dussabs, joining us from Geneva, will walk you through this. I've had the occasion to speak to Christopher and discuss this very interesting platform a couple of times, and I thought that more people should know about it and understand and kind of own, because we need ownership of such innovative initiatives all over in our PPP community. Christophe is the Chief Executive Officer of the Sustainable Infrastructure Foundation. He is based in Geneva, and as I said, he's joining us from Geneva today. He has worked in several leadership roles, bringing together the public and private sectors with innovative ideas before. And the IISS is one such initiative that Christophe is currently leading. And it's really a unique idea. I hope you'll enjoy his presentation. Let us hear him. Over to you, Christophe.
Can you hear me now? Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, or good evening for some of us. First of all, I would like to thank Shyamala and her team for the excellent work to organize this seminar. I know it's not easy to organize stuff through internet, and you will understand why in a couple of minutes. So I work with the Asian Development Bank for 4 years, and we have piloted this platform for 2 years in 5 countries. We had 100 users, and it was interesting to see the commitment of the governments to use the platform. And basically the objective of today is to tell you what is the initiative, where it comes from, where it is going. So basically what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share my screen so you can see the presentation that I want to show today. And then I will walk you through the platform, and it should not take too much time. So basically this platform, as I mentioned, I started 4 years ago. And I've been appointed after the Asian Development Bank to lead this initiative in order to have an international outreach, and not necessarily only in Asia. So today, 5 points. What is IISS? Who is SIF, the Sustainable Infrastructure Foundation? Why do we have developed IISS? And what we have done in 2015 and what we will do in the next few years, and how to be involved into this initiative. IISS is a product of the multilateral development banks. As I mentioned, it has started with the Asian Development Bank, and then we have shared that with our colleagues from the other development banks. And it's exclusively for the public sector. It's not a project preparation facility. It is not a private sector initiative. And it's a public sector tool that we want to make sure that the governments can access on a free access. And actually, we have started some of the pilots, and I will share that with you just after. In terms of IISS, it guides public sector agencies through a series of subsector templates. So now, what is a template? A template is a series of questions that are from general to specific with different themes: technical, financial, legal, environmental, and social, and governance. The user experience that you will see on the platform has been developed with the development banks and private sector and investors, and I will be able to show you the partner just after. It's a dynamic, user-friendly questions on how to answer on a subsector. So a template, as I mentioned, is a series of questions, and we have approximately 38 templates on a subsector basis. So we have a series of questions on bus rapid transit system, solid waste facility, bridge, roads, solar energy, so 38 subsectors. And the questions and answers is the work of key partners that we got strong market-based world-class inputs from all the different partners, which was quite an interesting exercise to see consistency and consensus in infrastructure. And when we look at the infrastructure sector, what we need to make sure is what the private sector and investors and operators would like to see when they evaluate a project. What type of inputs do they need? And we all acknowledge that the private sector and those international investors and even SMEs are the leaders of operating and investing in infrastructure assets. And they are basically setting the bar the highest on the technology and on the sound environment. So this is why we wanted to make sure that we could work with the different partners. Now, when I say IISS provide a multi-user, secure and standardized online workspace, that is very important to mention about the security, and this is why we are working with one of the international IT provider with Capgemini, and actually we could work with others, but for the moment, Capgemini, we are working with the Aerospace and Defense Department to make sure that the data security is very much secured. IISS was pioneered by the Asian Development Bank and is now led by an MDB appointed executive agency. So again, this executing agency is called the Sustainable Infrastructure Foundation, and it was born from the original Asian Development Bank TA funded by the Republic of Korea, and now it gathers all the other development banks. And basically, the African Development Bank, Asian Development Bank, Brazilian Development Bank, BNDES, DBSA, Development Bank of South Africa, European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, EBRD, the Inter-American Development Bank, Islamic Development Bank, and the World Bank Group. Now, who is CIF? It's a small secretariat and with a council of individuals, not organizations, that holds the constitution. It's a non-for-profit Swiss foundation headquartered in Geneva. CIF coordinates the provision of IISS to global users to aid capacity building on a long-term and sustainable basis. What it means is that we agreed as a group in Manila at the Asian Development Bank in December 2013 to have this tool on a long-term and sustainable basis in order to make sure that, first of all, the public sector can access freely the platform and make sure that it is better guided to prepare a project, and also to make sure that we can reach out globally, not necessarily only in Asia. The MDB's involvement and the development banks, because Brazilian Development Bank, BNDES, is not an MDB, but a national development bank, come through the advisory committee. And we have met several times. The last time that we have met was at the World Bank Group IMF spring meetings in Washington in April in order to agree on the next steps with the pilots. And there was a consensus with the advisory committee to make sure that we have the tool that is kept on a public sector access. The MDBs are supporting the initiative for the first 4 years of operations, and they are supporting it financially and intellectually. And they are providing feedback, as I mentioned, since the past 2 years, since we've started to create this international architecture. The reason why you didn't hear about it is because we didn't want to, because we were still finalizing the IT architectures, the partners, the templates, and also the pilots. And now we are at a stage where we can start slowly to share what we're doing and where we're going. Now, why IISS? What we have seen in Asia is that the public sector does not invest extensively in project preparation, and too often inconsistently. And what we wanted to do is basically to make sure that how can we provide a guide or a direction to governments in order to better prepare their infrastructure projects. Because I think we all agree, and I hope that money or funding is not lacking, and it's not about trying to match projects with funding, but the problem is how can we have projects that are better prepared. So when we say the private sector is regularly asked to be involved during project preparation, I'm sure you have seen that in many conferences, is that the private sector is often asked, and the public sector, can you please tell the audience what would it take for those private sector companies to invest in your country? Oh, by the way, you have 5 minutes. It's very difficult to go into the nuances of an infrastructure project, and it's going to be like a transparent procurement process, good rule of law, strong local finance markets, deep local finance markets as well, and all those different business as usual or criteria are regularly mentioned into conferences. But the problem is it's not easy to go into details on what a private sector is looking for and what a public sector is also looking for. So IISS goal is to raise down the quality and consistency and transparency of the public sector's project preparation. Why? Because, as I mentioned, what we think is that the lack in this infrastructure gap is about good, well-prepared, quality projects. And how to do that? Actually, the public sector is not only looking for money and consultants, but is also looking for what type of inputs do you need from me? What do you need in order for you to make a decision? And that is interesting because then we are not only talking about PPPs, but it can also be about publicly funded traditional procurement process. And the MDBs and PPPs see the fact that we can use the platform as a standard for project preparation because the objective is to improve the interface with financiers and funders to maximize funding options for the public sector. And basically what it means is that what we want is the private sector to be able to tell us, I will show you that on the platform, that, I don't know, Bechtel, I'm only interested in wastewater treatment, in roads, in Southeast Asia above $100 million, and if a third-party advisors have been involved, and if your questions or the templates have been answered by 50%. And if those criteria are met, I'm interested in order to look at this project. So this is why we have trying to do. And in terms of where we're going, as I mentioned, the last meeting that we had was in Washington in April, but the meeting before that was at EBRD in November, where we agreed to do the pilots. And in February, 4 pilots were selected by the advisory committee, one in Africa, one in Latin America, one in Europe, and one in Asia. And all the regional development banks and the multilateral development banks will be involved that I mentioned before. We had also a chance to review the templates for those pilots, and I will show you the slide just after who participated. We also presented that at the PPP Americas. It's an interesting event in Uruguay organized by the Inter-American Development Bank with a lot of public sectors, and there were a very strong positive answer on the use of ICE. And actually, 2 countries in Latin America have been chosen for the pilots. We have started the pilots in May. 1 country in Africa, the World Bank Group is involved, African Development Bank, and DBSA. And it's interesting to see how actually the public sector is actively using the platform. And it was actually a big interrogation mark that we were waiting for. And the responsiveness from the government is actually interesting because they are actually very interesting in order to be able to answer questions and to collaborate into a environment that allows consistency for project preparation. Then in June, we will have the PPP days, if you've heard about it, at the EBRD in London. And we will be able to discuss also with other existing initiatives, such as the Global Infrastructure Hub or the PPP Knowledge Lab that actually the World Bank is also leading with other MDBs. So all those different initiatives will also be linked together. And the objective is to launch, actually, no, that will happen in November. We will launch the platform at the Inter-American Development Bank with all the partners in November to make it available globally. So now I've been repeating the different partners that are involved. And I also want to mention before I show you the partners that the APEC Business Advisory Council has officially endorsed this platform last April when I was in Mexico. And we will present this platform at the APEC meeting on the 23rd of July. And we also had a chance, thanks to the OECD, one of the partners, to present the platform at the G20 Infrastructure and Investment Working Group in Singapore 2 weeks ago. And very strong positive feedback also emerged from this meeting. And we are also, of course, pursuing those developments. So now, the partners. Those logos are just for the sake of showing or representing the organization that give their time and that are giving their time to listen and help about what we're doing. And they provided very strong feedback, very important actually feedback, and it's actually thanks to all of them. And basically, if when we look at the private sector people, the interest from them, for example, the Caisse de dépôt et de placement du Québec, who is a pension fund, is not necessarily to be on the platform and bid for project, because as you know, they do not bid directly for projects, but when their clients are coming to them, would be interesting to be able to evaluate projects and make sure that the work that was supposed to be done at the early stages has been done. So those logos are not signed partners, but as I mentioned, they are the coalition of the willing that are giving us their time and commitment to review the templates, review the platform, and make sure what we have makes sense and is practical. And practical is what we want to make sure happens with the platform. And as I mentioned, if you want to remember one thing on the platform is the objective is to empower the public sector in order to be able to maximize his financing options, including PPPs. Now, the platform is this landing page. So what I will do is if I don't see it, I can't understand it. And Albert Einstein said that, and I very much agree with him. So what I will do is I will show you the platform live. So it will not take too much time. Basically, what we're going to do here, we're going to connect as a project manager. So for example, a development bank has a project or a project preparation facility as a project, or a government has a project. And they just have an idea of a project and they want to start documenting the project. So here I will log in as a project manager, or as a government, or as a development bank. So when you arrive on the landing page, what the user homepage is, you have the different projects that you are involved in as a project manager or as a consultant. But just look at here the create project. So I clicked here, if you can see my mouse here, on create project. So for the sake of this webinar, I included the different roles into one person to make it easier, so we don't have to log out and log in again. So when you start a project, you have basically general information to enter. So what is the project name, the sector, subsector, countries. So you have 4 countries because those countries are for the pilots. Description, type of project, estimated capital cost, original currency estimated capital costs for the sake of conversion risks, level of public sector, so you can provincial or national, so sometimes you can have more than one, and the same for type of project, you can have more than one type of project. And here public sector, who is the organization, contact person, email. And the same for the project manager. First name, last name, organization, telephone, and email. Now, when you create a project, those 2 people will receive an email and they will be able to access the platform. So as a project manager, as you can imagine, you can create a project and include yourself as a project manager and invite a public sector. Now, once you have received as a project manager the invitation to prepare a project, here what you will see. So we'll take this one that is empty, and it's of course a test, as I mentioned. It's not a real project. So basically when you arrive is what you see. Here, governance, technical, legal, financial, environmental, and social are the questions that I was referring to. Regarding the questions, I will not go through the 166 questions, and we are also updating them regularly based on the user feedback from the pilots. But if you look at, for example, the different answers, they are multiple, and they are not opened questions. And that took a lot of time. And all the different sectors or subsectors are like this. So it's not only yes or no questions, but it's actually what are the data that are important from different investors, operators, funders. So those questions, when you answer them, for example, let's do it quickly and I can show you what it does. What was important on the platform was basically to get a public sector to have a certain ownership on the project. And as you can imagine, that's what is very important in order to make sure that the project moves forward. Also to identify one person, that even if there's a lot of turnover, then there's always one person that is dedicated to the platform and can take over. So the project does not die because someone is leaving or a government is changing. So Now, if you go back on the home page, you can see that the project status here has moved forward. So that just shows that the project is moving. Now, here, those are basically the general information that we have entered when we have created the project. Here, key milestone. Those are general key milestones that we have identified with different partners, with the logos that you have seen before, in order to see what type of criteria that the partners or future interested parties would like to see if it has been done or not. And of course, that is also changing over time, so that is not static. As a project manager, I can also, who is following the project, I will show you this feature just after. But after, as you can see, it's a project management tool. You can upload documents, you can see who has done what and when. As a project manager, you can see who are the team members, the different consultants. So for example, I want to invite a consultant, name, last name, email, what I want him to access, legal, technical, and financial, and a due date, because it's always good to put a due date when you work with different consultants. And then the consultant will also receive an email asking him to go and answer those questions by a certain date. When he does, then it's a communication tool. My tasks, as I mentioned, when you are a consultant, you have a task that has been created whenever the project manager creates or invite a consultant. A consultant can also create a task to exchange with the project manager. So that is basically a project management tool. You can see here different logos here. Those logos here, you can create reports and teaser report, section report, full report. Public page. A public page is when, for example, as a public sector, you want to share the general information that you are doing. And when I mean the general information, it means that only the general information that you have entered at the beginning, the key milestone, the followers, but you cannot know who is following the project, and the project status. That's all. And that is accessible to anyone in order to give the opportunity for the public sector to assess a different interest from the market. It's not a market sounding, but actually it gives him who could be interested into his project. So now, as you have understood, we are here logged in as a project manager that has created a project that can involve a development bank or a project preparation facility. Now, what we will do is we will connect as a private sector. So what does a private sector can see when he logs in on the platform? Okay, so I will go back on the user homepage, so the first homepage, and when you are a private sector, here there is a search project. Okay, this search project is also here. Now, if I click on search project as a private sector, I will able to see the different criteria that I'm looking for. Countries, sector, estimated capital cost, project status, and then I can search what it's on the platform. And here we have different projects. So the projects that we were on just before, so we can go on it. And as a private sector, I can see this. And I can follow this project, as you can see here. So if I follow this project, there are now 4 followers that are following the project. And when there is a another feature, so now I will show you a new feature. Now, I know it's a lot of roles, but please bear with me. Now we're going to go back as a project manager. And if we connect as a project manager on the project that we were before, so now I'm the project manager. And on the project manager, there is here another feature, market comments. So if I click on market comments, those followers will be invited to comment on your project's public page. Those are CIA, yeah, that's a test, obviously. And those are the different companies or followers on the platform. Now, what is important to look at is here. Please note that these comments should not necessarily substitute for a thorough market sounding exercise. For more details on how to conduct a market sounding exercise, go to page of the PPP reference guide. If you don't know the PPP reference guide, I invite you to look at it. And this feature or this link to the PPP reference guide is only one example, because what we will do from July to December is to link practical questions on the platform to existing knowledge that anyone has developed and that are approved by the advisory committee to be on the platform. So as I mentioned, infrascopes, if you know infrascopes, PPP reference guide, or the PPP knowledge lab, or other PPP knowledge features, project preparation features and knowledge. So that is also an interesting and powerful tool to make sure that whatever we are doing, we are also using the best in class of what exists today. So if I click yes, then you can agree and do a market successfully started, as you can see at the top right corner. What it does, it sends an email to the followers and telling them, hey guys, the public sector of the project in Brazil, Curitiba, has invited you to comment his project. So now let's connect as a private sector because we have received this email. So here again, I'm back on the project that I'm following, as you can see here, my followed projects. So if I click on the platform, then I can see a private sector comments box. Okay. So now the as a private sector, I can comment the platform and or the project and what is the currency guarantee set up by the country or by the government. And if I submit, the reason why I want to show you is that it's anonymous for the public sector and for the project manager and the private sector to make sure that whatever comments we receive, we can make sure that people can speak freely about it, but also the project manager and the public sector can delete, of course, those comments. So now, if I go back to the project page, there is one last thing that I want to show you is here, as I said, you have the same view of my project if you are a consultant, if you are invited as a consultant. And you can access this platform anywhere. I've tested the connection in Madagascar on a 3G USB key. I've tested it also in Tanzania, in Abidjan, and it works quite well. And of course, the connection, sometimes you have to just to wait that the page downloads, but it works even on 3G USB key. So that was interesting also to test that on the field. And the other pilots are in Asia starting end of June, Latin America beginning of July, and in Europe in beginning of August. Now I finished the presentation on. So now I can give the floor back to Shyamala because I'm now 35 minutes on time. So stop sharing.
Thank you, Christoph. That was a really comprehensive presentation, and we have several questions. You might have seen that there's been a very active discussion going on in the chat box, and
Yes.
there are several very pertinent questions. And let's start with one question, which has also been, it's something I have also been thinking about, and it's good that this question has been asked. Um, there's this question of how comprehensive is this tool. Manoj Kamra has asked this question in the chat box. Is IISS comprehensive enough to decipher useful and useless projects? Does it have a detailed enough mechanism? And a related question is from Timothy, who is asking about the VFM and risk analysis and allocation capabilities of the platform. So could you, take a few minutes to discuss whether this IISS platform is merely to guide in project preparation, or can real projects be prepared in this and an analysis done of the risks of the project, and do a BFM analysis also, maybe value risks, and come up with numbers for all of these and take a reasoned decision based on this. Is it possible to do all of these analysis which go into preparing a project and structuring a project?
Okay, thank you, Shyamala. No, I didn't see the questions, and now I can see them. There was an active discussion. That's good. Regarding the platform, it will never replace a team of advisors. And if you want to do a VFM or other analysis, risk analysis, the platform will not do that for you. What the platform is doing is basically making sure that the type of data that we have on the platform is basically meeting what leading private sector investors, leading private sector operators, and development banks are looking for. And it's very important, and it's a very good question, that this platform is not seen as a substitute for advisors, because advisors, they need data, and in order to have projections, VFM, and even if you want to talk about the IRR, the platform will not do it for you. You will still need brains, but the platform is a very good tool to have all the data into one place and make sure that the project has been prepared in a consistent way. That was the
Thanks,
first question.
Christoph. I'll ask you another related question which has been asked in the chat box. Basically, so that you can focus on what ideas and what the vision of IISS actually is, taking into account your answer now. So, what is the ultimate goal of the platform? Pete Waston has asked this question, and what do you want to achieve? So, is it basically about knowledge management? That's his question. So, could you please, talk around these things, whether it's for per se project preparation? You said it'll not, replace transaction advisors. It'll not replace advisors. So is it about, getting all the data in one place, like you said? So is it a knowledge management tool basically, rather than a, just a project preparation tool?
Yes, so the platform, what we intend to achieve, the first success factor that we are actually witnessing is having a government to understand that project preparation is necessary in order to be able to attract and raise interest from private sector investors and operators. And that is really what the message is about for this platform. Is, as I mentioned at the beginning, the gap, or this quote unquote gap in infrastructure, is not about matching project and funders. It's about how the project has been prepared. And this is why the work of IFC, the World Bank, the development banks is great, because they are dedicating more and more resources to project preparation, which is where the biggest gap is. And that is not Christophe who is saying this, is the logos that you have seen before. And this is a common acknowledgement or common criteria, and actually things that are repeated over and over again in the different forums and events, is that consistency is key for infrastructure investment. And what we aim to do with the platform was this first success factor that we are experiencing right now with the pilots, is that governments are actually using the platform to make sure that the project is better prepared. Now, what is the second objective is to make sure that there is a better communication between the public sector and the private sector. And yes, then we become about how can we raise or how can we make the public sector and the private sector to speak the same language. And that is really key in order to make sure that we have a tool that can facilitate project preparation in order to have a greater amount of projects that are better prepared and attract investors and MDBs. So this is what we are trying to achieve. And in terms of the question of knowledge, it is not only a knowledge tool. And the reason is that for us, it's a working environment tool in order to communicate and prepare the project consistently, but also a knowledge environment. So a working environment and a knowledge environment in order to enable the users to access world-class existing references that organizations have created. And as I mentioned, huge time and excellent work has been done on Infoscope, PPP reference guide. The PPP Knowledge Lab will gather all this knowledge and make it available. So if we talk about a knowledge tool, then I will refer that to this PPP Knowledge Lab. And if we are talking about a working environment and a knowledge environment, then yes, IISS is both, but is not only one of them.
Thank you, Christophe. We have questions relating to the platform itself and how it will be made available. We have one question which says, yeah, this is from Mushtaba Shanil. Is there any cost to the IISS platform? Do the MDBs give a loan or grant to use it in case there's a cost? And then there's another related question from Marcos. At the end of the pilot phase, is it intended to be available for free for governments? So would you be charged? Would the SIF be charging for it, or would it be just available to anyone who wants to come in, basically the public sector, or maybe others who want to use it?
Okay, so in terms of the access to the platform, it will and it is free for the public sector, and we want to leave it like this. So this is what we agreed in Washington with the advisory committee, with the development banks, and this is what we will do. Now, how are we going to make the platform sustainable? We also have discussed that is after the first 3 years of operations, we will have a small amount that is being paid by technical assistance funding coming from a project preparation facility or a development bank or an international organization that is doing project preparation. And there will be a small amount going to the IT system on a cost recovery basis. We're also thinking about trainings with the different stakeholders, so to provide trainings and have a certain revenue. And again, always on a cost recovery basis, because as I mentioned at the beginning, we agreed to create a Swiss foundation, and we are under the supervision of the federal government. So we cannot make profit, and we will not make profit. So we will make sure that whatever we ask is on a small amount, but less is more. So that is one of the two options. And the third options is also with the private sector. We are discussing with the partners that you have seen on what type of alerts they would like to receive when the project is moving forward, even if it's publicly accessible. Then we could also charge a minimum fee in order for the private sector to receive information that are on a real-time basis in order to be aware of what is happening and how the project is moving forward. So this is another option in terms of sustainability. Does it answer all your questions, Shamala, or is there something that I'm missing? I'm sorry I didn't.
It does. Thank you. I had another related question. You have this project preparation platform. You're bringing in a lot of the information on infrastructure projects. So once the project agreement is signed, project is put into implementation stage. So at that point of time, would you also be collecting information on the projects? Would some information be coming in? Is there an extension to this platform to look at the post execution, contract execution stage? How does it work?
Uh, yeah, that for the moment, no. What we'll definitely do is to follow the project on an individual case and see if the project has been, if there was a financial close and if it's being built. Now, will the public sector continue to use the platform during the procurement process and after? That remains to be seen. And for the moment, we haven't designed the platform for that. It's possible they continue to use it. But at this stage, when we talk about the procurement process, IFC has a great tool. African Development Bank has a great tool as well, internally speaking, to manage the procurement stuff. So we will see what will be the comments from the different partners if it's necessary and if we have to, but it is not an objective. Our focus is really at the project preparation level up to the expression of interest. And this is where we want to stop on the platform. Now, as I mentioned, we will be able to see what type of project has a successful financial close and if it's being built. And the platform, the second development phase that we are doing right now from June to December, is about developing features such as benchmarking. So benchmarking of infrastructure performance, financial performance, sustainability performance, project preparation funding performance. So why a project in Laos and the same BRT project in Cambodia, one has been financially closed and the other one has not. And in order to compare between countries, between cities, and between inside the same country, the type of project and why one of them has been financially closed and the others have not. So that will be available and we will be able to work on different statistics. And those different statistics will be developed with the different partners and in collaboration with the different partners. And as I mentioned, the different partners can be from the OECD, from the development banks, the Global Infrastructure Hub. So the different organizations that inspires to create statistics and benchmarking. So that will be a way in order to make sure that we can have a way to improve project preparation over the long term. But it's going to take time. But so far, what we have received from the partners is that we want to have the platform to be used as a standard for project preparation processes inside the development banks.
Thanks, Christoph. We have three other very good questions. Some basically seek some more information, but there are others which really deal with big issues that one would face, handling all of this data. First, we'll go to this question from Marcos. Do you have a vision of possible translation into other languages? Followed by two other questions. Would this tool be available to unsolicited PPP projects from Aku? That's his question. And then we have another question. What kind of projects are concerned? Are we talking about pure public infrastructure projects, or is it open for other types, PPP, as well as other projects which are not just pure uh, public procurement, or maybe also to the private sector to do its projects? So could you talk a little bit about that, about these questions?
Yes. So the first question, multilingual. Yes, definitely. And this is what we are doing. And it will be in Portuguese, Spanish, Mandarin, and French. And for the moment, that's it. But yes, as the more it will be used, the more we will receive feedback from the users, and the more they will ask us to put that into their native languages or mother languages. So yes, that is planned, and it will be done. In terms of will it be only used for public procurement? Uh, what we agree on is that when you start with a project, so what I was showing before, the project creation form, at this stage, we don't think that you can know for sure if the project can be a PPP, a concession, or a publicly funded project, or another type of partnership. What we believe is that while you will prepare your project, and when you will answer the different legal questions and technical questions and financial questions, uh, then you will be able to make a decision on what is the best option for this particular piece of asset. And that is, again, a way to empower government. So, in order to make sure that the platform is really defending the government's interest in terms of the environment and also in terms of bilateral deals that have been done on for short-term political agenda, and it's really and this is what we got actually from the governments who we present that to, because for them it was a way to be able to have more options, and the most powerful person in a room is the person with the most options. So this is why the platform is not only for PPPs, or not only for public procurement, or not only for concessions. It's for all type of different projects in order to enable the government to make proper decisions and to be advised actually accordingly. Because one of the criteria that we want to have on the platform is from the private sector is, did you have a third-party advisor in order to make sure that the government is actually helped and advised properly on the different options that you can take. And I'm sorry, Shyamala, I didn't write the second questions. What was the second questions? Sorry.
About did you talk about unsolicited projects? There
Yes.
was this question from Marco Akolo, so that you have done.
And it's a,
Um,
yeah, it's a very good
the,
question. Yep, sorry, go ahead.
no, there's also another question, which was the last question. I probably didn't mention it finally. This is from Howard Davis. He has asked, how do you deal with proprietary data given such data is required? So basically, we are having, in PPPs, we have a lot of issues with what information can be disclosed. And that's the deal with many other projects, not just PPPs. So there will be this issue of confidential information. So even if you are bringing countries together and all of this data together, how much of that can you share? So could you talk a
Yes.
little bit about that also?
Okay. So for the unsolicited project proposal, that is also a very interesting question because we discussed that in PPP Americas in Uruguay. and there are a lot of unsolicited project proposals in Africa. And will it be open to it? I mean, it will be the decision of the public sector. And to be honest, I think that yes, it should be used by the public sector on unsolicited project proposal, to be able again to give them the most options and to be able to take this proposal, answer the different questions, and then see what is the best option and to open it uh, to the world, not necessarily to one particular entity. And that, again, we are more as a Microsoft Excel entity or software, and we are not a project preparation facility, and we will not advise governments. So basically, what I'm telling you today is what I think could happen. But at the end of the day, the development banks and the public sector and the project preparation facilities will use it uh, as they want. So if they don't want to do unsolicited project proposal, maybe it will never happen. What we have received as feedback from the different governments is yes, it gives them an opportunity to be able to maximize options. So yes, that's what we got as feedbacks. Now the other question is on confidentiality, and that is also a good question. We have we have discussed in length about the confidentiality of data. Now, what is important that you remember is that the platform is not accessible to anyone. So nobody can access it unless you are invited by a public sector or by a project manager. Now, as I've shown you, you can publish some of the information. Now, if there are some of the information that you don't want to publish, you can. And if you don't want to publish the project at all, you can. So the public sector has all the power in order to, yes, show what he wants to show with the public page. And what we have agreed as a group is that the information that we have so far are not under confidentiality issues or protecting laws. So that should not be a problem. Now, if there are some information that you want to share, you don't want to share on the public page, just don't share it. So you can click on which information you don't want to share. And if you don't want to share your projects at all, just don't publish it. And there is another question that I'm also raising in terms of confidentiality. What are the different jurisdictions laws in terms of data storage? And that is very important because, for example, in Brazil, they don't allow the data to be stored outside of their country. And how we will do is we will work on a hybrid system. It's a technical term in the IT business. It's basically to have the cloud that is accessible to for the application, so for IISS, and the data that is entered on the application is stored on a cloud in Brazil, not outside Brazil. So these hybrid systems will also be available after the pilots, because of course for the pilots we didn't want to have that added layer for this pilot. But yes, that will also be available to make sure that data sovereignty, actually we call it, is also met and make sure that we are in compliance with the different jurisdictions and laws.
Thank you so much, Christoph. We are now almost at the end of our webinar, so I would ask you to sum up whatever we have been talking about so far in terms of the use of this platform, the usefulness of this platform basically, and sum up in 1 minute. What do you think your audience today should take away from it? We have several people from the public sector with us today. What should the public sector take away from it? What should the private sector take away from it?
Okay. I, I don't like elevators speech because you can never go into details, and always the devil is in the details. But what I could do from a public sector point of view is that the public sector remembers that it's important for them to speak the same language with the private sector if they want to attract funding. And the platform brings transparency, consistency, and better quality projects. So from a public sector, this is what I will try to remember, because if you prepare your projects well, you will attract investors. If you are more transparent, you will also attract investors. Not for all investors, but when you talk about international investments, yes, this is one aspect that is important. And really, consistency, transparency, and better quality project is important. So this is what I will share with our colleagues from the public sector. And from the private sector, I mean, we don't have to hold your hands, the private sector. I mean, you know what you're doing. You know, in terms of technology, in terms of sound environment, you're actually supporting us to make this platform better. So what I would say is, please tell us more about what you think, how we can improve it, uh, how can we make this platform more attractive also to the public sector. And because at the end of the day, what we want to do is to be able to empower the public sector so they can build their assets to provide better services to their citizens. I know it can sound naive, but this is why I'm doing this. And this is what I will say regarding the public sector and the private sector. Consistency and consensus are key for infrastructure investments. And it's very powerful to see today that the group that we have is really working and giving their time and money and inputs in order to make sure that this initiative works. And this is really the power of the number here that we are talking about. And governments are actually using it. So yeah, this is what I will. That's what we do as a summary.
Thanks, Christoph. And thanks for a great presentation and for your comprehensive answers to all the questions. Having you with us today. I wish to also thank all our participants for spending this hour with us and for asking very insightful questions. Thank you very much, all of you. And please keep checking our website, the E-Institute website, for further PPP webinars. This was the last in the series, but we will come back to you soon. Thank you so much, and take some time to look at your screens and give us your feedback about the technical aspects of the webinar as well as the content and presentation. Thank you so much.